Welcome back, everyone. So it's late here in Spain. It's actually the early hours of Sunday morning. And I was just about to go to bed, and a friend of mine sent me a rather concerning headline from the Telegraph this morning. Let me just pop that up on screen. It says, Britain is on the brink of civil war, says Steve Bannon, Trump ally. Says Britain has a problem with radical Islam that is getting worse. Civil war, a headline and a topic that I've seen worryingly and unfortunately a hell of a lot over the last few weeks and in recent months. It's a subject that I have deliberately tried to avoid, tried to ignore in many ways. But I think it's time that we had a very, very serious chat on the subject. One of the reasons I've avoided talking about this sort of thing is that I believe the more you talk about it, the more likely potentially it could happen. And it's the last thing that I want in this world. I love our country. I love our people. I hate bloodshed. I hate conflict. And there are millions and millions of good people in our country from all races, creeds, colours and religions. Many of my friends in the past have been Muslims, and they have been very dear friends to me. And I would imagine that the decent Muslims that I've known in my life would be just as concerned about these headlines as I am, because I never ever thought that we could potentially, God forbid, be at war with each other. And the thought of that terrifies me. But there's a clue in that headline. I'll just pop it up again. Trump ally says Britain has a problem with radical Islam that is getting worse. Radical Islam. That's not Muslims, as in all Muslims. It's not my friends that are Muslim. It's not the many Muslims that I've known that are peaceful, kind, decent individuals. We're talking radical Islam. And by now we should all know the difference. We, of course, are not talking about Mr. and Mrs. Patel on the street corner who own the corner shop that we visit at 11 o'clock at night to get our pints of milk. They're just like you and I. They want to get on with their lives. We're not talking about the doctor or the brain surgeon that operates on us and saves our lives. These are good people. We're talking about the radicals. And we all know what radical Islam means, what it represents, what it does, and what it's capable of doing. We've seen it at Manchester Arena, we've seen it, the London bombings, we've seen it on London Bridge, we've seen it, we saw it on 9/11, and we've seen it in Israel on the 7th of October. We've seen what radical Islam can do. How big is the radical Islam problem in the UK? It's my belief that it's huge, absolutely huge. And the problem with radical Islam is that it sucks in the moderate Muslims through fear. And not only through fear, through a much stronger religious bond than we are perhaps used to. It's a very complex situation, but something has been running through my mind, and I've been trying to avoid mentioning it really, but my guess is that if the Telegraph can talk about it, GB News, Talk TV, and many other commentators, I guess I'm entitled to share my views. The first thing that I want to make absolutely clear, I think I've already made it clear, it's the last thing in the world that I want to see. Do I think it's possible? Well, the British take a lot before they have their back broken, if that makes sense. We're a very tolerant people. In many ways, that's been our downfall. But is it possible? Yes, I believe it is possible. The more worrying side of it, and this is where it's going to get very, very sticky and very contentious, and you're going to have to bear with me on this one. Would we win? That I'm not so sure of, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the British people are not used to fighting battles where we haven't fought a battle that's been this close to home since the 1940s, a very long time ago now. We're a different breed, a different animal, and a different people to what we were back then. We're not made of the same stuff. Our youngsters would be of virtually no use to us whatsoever. That's the truth. The most willing people in this country would be men that are mostly 50 plus. Mostly. Let's say 40 plus. That's not really what you would call fighting age men. Fighting age men, they usually say 18 to 35. I don't believe the British people have the backbone or the will to win a civil war, God forbid, if it ever took place. And I know a lot of you are going to be really angry when I say that, and you're going to be disagreeing with me, but you need to think about this. The people that we could potentially be at conflict with, and I shudder even using the word war, so I'll use the word conflict. The harsh reality is this, is that the people that we could be at conflict with will certainly be better armed. They'll be much more prepared. They will be more willing. They will be more united. And they are already more regionalised. In other words, they could mobilise a lot faster, a lot quicker, and probably a lot better than the indigenous British people. That's a harsh reality. That's not even really an opinion. If you go back to the riots after the Southport massacre, if you look at how a certain community came together in the streets in huge numbers, and more importantly, of the right or wrong ages, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm talking about young men between the ages of 18 and 35, up for it, ready, willing, and waiting, armed and prepared. The British people are none of that. That's the truth. The authorities would almost certainly come down on the side. Well, let's just say they wouldn't be on the side of the indigenous British. When we talk about civil war, I think we need to be very careful on how it's spoken about, what the newspapers write and what they print and what people say. Because if we're not careful, we could end up with what some people wish for, and it wouldn't be pretty. And it must be avoided at all costs, because the end result would be unthinkable. What these people would be prepared to do does not bear thinking about. And we've seen examples of it. We saw it in Israel on October the 7th. Probably two of the most apt videos that I have watched in recent times. One was with Charlie Veitch and Liam Tufts, when Charlie Veitch chillingly spoke about and predicted how the start of a civil war could potentially begin in the UK. If you haven't seen that video, I'd go and watch it, because I fear that Charlie was probably very close to being correct as to how it would start and how it would pan out. The other video that's really got me thinking and has prompted this video this evening, well, that's not quite true. What's prompted this video this evening was the Telegraph's report. Again, just for the purpose of this video, in case anyone is thinking that this is something that I want to talk about, I'm reacting to this. Britain is on the brink of civil war, says Steve Bannon, Trump ally, says Britain has a problem with radical Islam that is getting worse. This video is a reaction to that, and that alone. But the other video that is playing in the back of my mind, and I just can't get it out of my head, and it's been on my mind for some time, is when Nigel Farage said to Winston Marshall, if we alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. Now, along with a lot of other people, I've given Nigel Farage a lot of stick over that. But I just wonder if he was being a little bit more cryptic than we gave him credit for. Was he saying, I'm asking the question, was Nigel Farage saying that if we had a civil war, that we would lose? And I can't get that out of my mind, because I have to say, if that's what he was saying, I'd have to agree. Now, of course, if the army got involved, if the authorities were involved on the right side, then that will be a different story. But would you trust the government? Would you trust the king? Would you trust those that rule us to put the army on the street to take a side? I wouldn't. Would you trust the police to take our side? I wouldn't. That means that the British people, the indigenous British people, not only would they potentially be fighting an internal threat, a sectarian threat, an attack, they'd also be facing the law in addition, which would make that war unwinnable. So my concern here is that there's been far too much talk of civil war. And I believe that some people out there actually want that. And let me tell you now, it would be a disaster for everyone. There would be no winners, only losers. And this country would never, ever, ever be the same. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how I believe a civil war would end in this country. It would end with pockets and silos right across the United Kingdom, no-go areas, no-go zones for one community or another. Certain cities would be Christian, white British, whatever, black British. Certain cities would be run by the Muslims under Sharia law or whatever law they chose to impose. And the police, the army, the authorities, indigenous British would not be welcome, a bit like it used to be in Northern Ireland. If you was a Catholic, you certainly didn't venture into certain areas. If you was a Protestant, you stayed out of certain areas. And if you didn't, it's pretty likely that you wouldn't come back. That's how a civil war would end and pan out in the United Kingdom. Can it be avoided? Will it happen? And can it be avoided? Will it happen? I pray to God that it never does. But I think it's inevitable. Unless things change massively in our country, my head tells me that massive conflict one day, brought on by whatever reason it could be, and probably would be something completely random. I feel that it's inevitable, sadly and shockingly. You have to remember that the people we're talking about here will not put up with and are nowhere near as tolerant as we are, as we have been. They won't put up with the nonsense that we've put up with, and they will react in a far more aggressive, far more proactive manner and fashion. And then it's all down to how the British react. So will it happen? I believe, very sadly, that it's inevitable, unfortunately. And I've already told you how it will end, how I believe it will end. What's the answer? How can it be avoided? Well, there are certain communities in this country that simply have to integrate and to understand that they're living in a Christian democratic society and that some of their prehistoric ways are not welcome. I don't think they'll ever accept that. That's not what their religious teachings tell them to do if they are radicalized. The Quran is an issue. The Bible can be an issue if you follow it to the letter. But in general, Christians don't do that. A lot of Muslims do, and that's a problem. It's a problem for us, and it's a problem for them. It's a problem for our society. So there needs to be more and better integration and a better will to integrate. I don't feel that we can do any more to make these people feel comfortable and welcome. I don't know what else we can do. And the government and the law needs to get to grips with whose side they're on and what they want for the future of this country, and more importantly, for the future of their children. We have to end this ridiculous mass, illegal, irregular migration, whatever term you choose to use. And remember, right back at the beginning of the video, I spoke about the availability of fighting age men. I don't need to say any more, do I? So, a video that I didn't want to make, I've been avoiding making. It's a topic that I've really skipped, to be honest. Maybe I should have spoken about it before. But like I said, I'm one of these people that I try not to talk too much about things that I want to avoid. And I don't want to talk that up. And I'm not talking that up. I'm talking about the harsh realities and the headline and the story that the Telegraph have run today. Very frightening, very concerning, and even more scary. Very true. Oh, that was a difficult one, especially this late at night or early in the morning. So guys, let me know what you think. What's your opinion? Please keep it decent. Please keep the messages and the replies within the law. Remember, just because you use a funny pseudonym on your YouTube channel doesn't mean to say that the authorities don't know who you are and where you are, because trust me, they do. So be responsible for your own comments, your own words. Understand the type of society that we live in today and be very, very careful. That's it. I'm off to bed on that thought. Not very pleasant, eh? I'll speak to you soon.